I still hope we are going to have a highly professional discussion of the issues we are going to consider here. So, good afternoon. Yeah, I give the floor, just not to lose time. I give the floor, the moderator will be Alexander Vlasenko, expert in education, so you have the floor, and I wish all the participants a very good discussion. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. We have gathered here in order to talk on such a global topic as the law on higher education, how to make the Ukrainian education competitive. But within the framework of this global topic, we have less global but very important nevertheless things. First of all, what are the requirements for the Ukrainian university professors or the lecturers, and what the link between what is being taught in the university and what really the graduates from the Ukrainian universities need to know when getting the job. I would like to introduce to you the participants for the discussion today. They are broken down into the four conventional groups. I'm not going to name here those who are not present here today. When they join us, we can do that later. When us Mrs. Sovsun, Sovsun is the only representative of the Ministry of Education. No, you're not alone any longer. Mr. Oleg Derevyanko, according to our nameplates, just visited here. Oleg Derevyanko, Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine. Also, we have the representatives of the higher education establishments. I would like to welcome Mr. Viktor Ognevyuk, Rector of the Borys Grinchenko Kyiv University, Olivier Vedrine, President of the Continental University of Kyiv, and Mr. Volodymyr Bugrov, vice-rector of the Shevchenko National University of Kyiv. Also, we have some experts in the educational sphere, Mrs. Zhana and Finikov, President of the Education Policy Research Foundation, and to my right is Mr. Rodion Kolyshko, the only representative of the employers. Here, Director of the HR Department of the Confederation of Employers of Ukraine. So we have four different groups, and we are going to have a very interesting, I believe, discussion. And during the Kokot, of course, expert of CEDOC. First of all, I would like everybody to answer the only question which I'm going to ask and address to each of you. Okay, let's agree that while answering, you will take not more than 2 minutes, so that within 20 minutes we'll start our kind of first discussion, and then we can discuss other questions. My question addressed to Mr. Derevyanko, what they're talking about the let's say the decrease in the specialization, which will train our would-be students. And there's a lot of myths and things with some jokes already are there around this issue, and according to the Garage famous movie by director Rezanov, that if we have 4 garages it would be better than 3, but let's say not so good as 5. So if we had the 525, and now in the final analysis we have only 109 specialization. So 2 minutes you have to answer why we need that. I believe I won't take even 2 minutes to answer, because I'm going to answer this question, Mrs. Ina Sovsun, because this is within her competence, and myself as a former employer, and now I'm a civil servant. This is required. Well, actually, I'm the person who is not different to the science education. I've been working with the informal education and implemented different projects, and I started a lot beyond the boundaries of Ukraine. In my view, this is required in order to move and further develop the Ukrainian education towards the best European standards. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to say that the list of the specializations or specialties is just a list. But if you read the law says that the number of the specialization is not limited. So any university, those who wish to do that and have the opportunities and possibilities to do that, they can in a very flexible way react to the demands of the employers. But Ina will give you more detailed answer. So why we need that? The discussion what is required that we have to change the list of specialization is being started many years ago. It's not us who started that. We just managed to achieve some results. The employers, first of all, but also representatives of universities who have been talking that this list it was artificially expanded, and some of specialization were prepared for some certain people, certain chairs, departments in university, not for the realistic demand on the part of the would-be students or the market, existing market. So we have to consolidate some of this specialization. I won't name it kind of decrease. It does mean that we just cancel those, let's say, strike off some of the specialization. What does it mean in this case? It means that we are going to move towards the European model, who are talking about a lot, but do not want to implement in practice. When the would-be student tries to get this bachelor's degree, but about 25% of the curriculum can they themselves choose his further specialization, or then at the level of the master's degree, we can offer more narrow specialization. For example, you start the law in the master's degree, you can specialize in the criminal law, for example. So first of all, we have to think that we have to provide the rights of the would-be students. They have to understand what they're going to study and where they're going to study. We have such a blown, let's say, list of those specialization students where often do not understand the difference between two of those, So they are possibilities to get the job. Those chances were rather narrow. They have a very narrow specialization. All of a sudden, the demand for that specialization profession disappears from the market, and that actually narrowed, or let's say decreased the rights of the students. So what we are doing this, why we are doing that? Because there is demand of the European integration. We have to integrate into European space. We have to move towards that, and we have to provide the curriculum which is more orientated on the master's degree, let's say, level, and the new list will be more understandable for the students. It would be easier for them to choose between, let's say, 10 specialties than out of the 100. And again, something which is not understood by many universities, but the certain specialization is more broadly, it offers more broad, a wide range of realization of the possibilities of those who university, unlike the more narrowly described specialization, when they could not move within those very narrow limits. Now the university can form or can actually plan their own curriculum. They will have the more narrow name of the specialization, for example, political philosophy. No less important, I believe Rodion will tell you more details about that, but with the process of 6 months discussion of this problem, and we cooperated with the employers. At the first stage, we did not have the agreement with the employers because they wanted a more broad specialization. The university asked for more narrow specialization. So maybe Rodion will tell you more about that. But in fact, we are talking about the prepare to train a more broad range, I would say, especially students who will have more possibilities to find a job.
Огневюка, от як до ректора. Пане Вікторе.
Victor, as a rector, don't you think that a year ago, the Minister of Education, Mr. Kyiv, told The most important in our education is to give autonomy to our universities and to let them decide how to train students and to risk their own rating. Don't you think that a year ago you got autonomy and now with such restrictions they push you into that corner which we had before? First of all, I don't see any limitation, and quite the opposite. In the framework of autonomy, and we have more rights for the universities, and we get a chance to build education programs, to develop them, reacting to the needs of the market, labor market, quickly. And I believe that standards, the future standards they will develop, they will not be conservative. Not very conservative for standards for 10 years. It means that we conserve our education. So that's I believe that the Ministry of Education will work well, and everything. It will allow universities to be flexible in terms of their programs, and it will allow students to be trained with quality, because it's about serious integration. A student who has very good training, fundamental training, education, or they can go to a narrow programs, master degree programs, and that improves the level of knowledge. As to the universities, we need a university should develop its own autonomy. You cannot enforce autonomy, and there's a legislation, and in that sense we make serious steps forward, and I believe our direction is right. I would like to ask Mr. Olivier Vedrine, and in the presentation of the Deputy Minister, she told that these changes bring Ukrainian education to European standards of education. You, as a person from abroad, you know European standards of education quite well, and now you know standards of education in Ukraine. Could you answer the question? Do you recognize in these changes the movement or the efforts to bring Ukrainian education to European education standards?
Yeah, I think the only way, to build a new Ukraine is not the only way, but one of the most important way is really to change the system of education in Ukraine, because your system is a heritage of post-Soviet system. And yes, this is a key issue for Ukraine to its integration to the European Union, to change the system of education. I know the two systems, and really, for what I feel is that now the system of education in Ukraine has to be more close to a reality of the world, of the modern world, because you cannot, you have to be more flexible. You have to really be more close to the world of economy, of business. You have to have more education on foreign language, on international law, on business law. Really, in Europe, like in USA, we have the same way now of thinking of the education. That's why we work together now. And really, this is, for Ukraine, this is very important, because you cannot go to the 21st century with the old system of education. And if you want to build a new generation for a new Ukraine, education is a key issue. But don't forget that at the end, the target for the student is to find a job. When you are, I teach. I am professor since now 15 years in France. I was professor in business school, and for me, when I teach with my students, I am very happy when at the end I find a job, because I say, if they find a job, I did my job. And if you want to change really the system of education, you have only to know that and to underline that our job will be done if our student will find a job.
Оскільки ми вже сказали,
Because I am very happy that you said it, that the task of the student, and the student will be happy only when he finds the job in the end of the education. I would like to speak to Mr. Kolyshko, who is the representative of the Union of Employers of Ukraine. The question is, to which extent our education, how close it is to the requirements of employers to students, and how this changes. And the second small question, how these new changes, how will it bring closer to better standards of employers to students, or requirements of employers to students? Thank you. I would like to continue what Olivier told, and I am very thankful, Olivier, that you appealed to the market of labor. And I want to say that I wouldn't exaggerate the work on standards or the list of the professions. It's very important work. I agree with Ina that not they began that work, and it's great that they finish it. And good or bad, that's not important, because everything can be changed, improved, corrected. But the most important that we move on. Also, we completely agree that there must be broad professions, because too much specialization brought us to the situation that employers, in the end, we are lost, we are confused whom we hire. And we have the situation that diploma from the university is started to lose its importance among employers. And in the end, it comes to the point that students are not asked about diplomas, but students ask, what can you do really? It's good, it's correct, but then there is a question, okay, what were I doing for 5 years in the university, and what's the difference between one university and the other? If I'm asked what I can concretely do with my hands, so with my head, and here we approach the issue to the question, how this education system considers the requirements of the market, or labor market. It's very difficult to answer this question, because we are all waiting of the new system of such cooperation that should start since September, because at present education standards as a document, they stop their force, and the new documents, and there will be new documents that will consider requirements of the labor market. And here's the question, where those requirements of the labor market can we read about? It's the question to us, to employees. We understand that, but from our point of view, those requirements should be formulated they should come from employers. We call it as a document, professional standards, that outlines requirements of an abstract employer to a concrete job. And those requirements, if they are correct according to procedures, and if they pass, if they are developed and they are approved by the education system, and if they are at the base of curriculums, then they will be approved by the agency as such. Thank you. When we started to speak about the standards, I have to say that the language of professors, teachers, and it has its own abbreviations that are clear only for professors. And for example, OKKIOPP. Education, qualification, characteristics, which outline which tell us what we should teach to students. My question to Volodymyr Borovy: this requirement of employees to create a document, to develop a document that will be clear, not only to education people, but also to employees and students. Is it possible to develop such a document under these circumstances? Very good question. Thank you. My colleagues gave an answer for your question. I am a teacher of philosophy, and I want my thought to be precise. So there are no international standards of education. They don't exist. We cannot find them. They don't exist. The European system of education doesn't exist because education in France is different from Germany or the UK or Poland. Every country is building its own system of education. That's a fact. Bologna process, it's outside of academic reality. That's a requirement of politicians and employers to citizens. The main reason, the main principle is a need to bring together, let me call it, academic and professional standards. OKHPP, those abbreviations, this innovation of big people, and who use such terms to describe common things. But there is an academic standards, and which includes requirements to skills, competencies, and knowledge of students, and that allow them, through practical and theoretical courses, to have results in the end. Professional standards, we have 8 of them in Ukraine, no, 18. Professional standards, that's a description of what a person should know when they come to a job place, to a labor place. And that's a requirement, professional standards is a requirement of employers. But to develop that standard, that's quite a problematic issue, because take a simple example. There is a law department, for example. They teach lawyers, but on corporate rights, on crime, criminology law, these are different people. And to train them in the same way, it's impossible. That's why we must develop Ministry of Education, national agency as public agencies, and employers. Employers understand that, though there are some conflicts among them. When they were given the CEBL department, one employers in IT says from the very beginning, learn how to program. Don't pay attention to math or anything else. And the representative of the other association of employers says no. From the very beginning, learn algorithm, functional analysis, etc. Because after that, we will not be competitive. A student is lost. What to do? So the task, as I mentioned, is to bring together, to find people like those who are present here, we have, and who can implement professional standards into economic activity. And also to academic activities, academic standards, we should invite as many as possible practical people, people who know concrete requirements, but at the same time do academic work, do teach, and in that we could get competitive Ukrainian education. In the end, I will mention only one point. To have an illusion, to cherish an illusion. Look, for 2 hours I had a meeting with teachers of international relations, and I explained everything related to the number of fields. And it was approved by the cabinet of ministers yesterday, and that's very relative. It will change. It will change. And we discussed, maybe we'll not need it. But to cherish an illusion that through specialization we can achieve everything, that's a huge mistake. Why? Because not the Ministry of Education and Science runs education, but it's Ministry of Finances and Economics. So that's the number of positions of teachers depends on how much in the budget we have for certain professions. We have Institute of Philology. We have more than 30 languages, but they doesn't consider that there could be 2 or 3 languages given or taught to every student, and they don't see Eastern languages, and that requires quite different things. So that's why we should communicate, not only with the Ministry of Education, because people understand this, but we need to communicate with the Ministry of Economy and Finances, because for these things need to be taken into consideration. Communication is a key word here, because we understand that the law on higher education, this regulation, all of them are not clear for them. Thank you. We listened to three parties of this interest related to education ministry, employers and professors. Now it's time to look at that from a side. I invite Mr. Finikov to tell us in this system which we develop now, in the new system of higher education, to some certain extent, new reform system of education, and the relation between the state, which gives this state order, and a university, which provides education services in order to satisfy that order of the government, and a student who receives those services, whose interest there should be taken into consideration as the most important.
На мій погляд, доволі очевидну річ.
We were talking about the very obvious thing. To us, ideal is the system when we have just a few rather wide range specialization, a rather big number of narrow curricula, because the availability of big number of the broken into small curricular specialization, this is a shortcoming of the higher education. Today's tempo of life very often creates a situation when a person during his or her education in the high school, they do not have a sufficient number of specialization demand of this specialization. This student was specialized in. So that's very briefly what I would like to describe this situation. Speaking about who must be the leader or the main person in this story, it's obvious that this interest must be interest on the part of the student, or let's say the recipient of the higher education. We have to understand well today that the imposition on the part of the state, these are not the list of specialization. This is a relict of the previous eras or epochs. Perhaps we should have the analysis which would demonstrate the demand on the market, but who can tell us what the short-term or mid-term or the long-term prospects for the Ukrainian economy? Who can tell us today how many specialists we are going to need, let's say 5 years later, 10 years later? Are we going to re-industrialize the country or not? Are we going to turn the country into a greater industry or not? So, etc., etc. Though this answer doesn't exist in this society yet, and obviously not in the state. That's why the win-win situation will be the orientation to the demand on the part of the students, or to put it in a different way, the demands of Ukrainian economy plus the demands of the student and his near and dear, his relatives. So we are talking about the organization of the education process, student-centrist, so to say, when the student becomes the full-fledged participants in this process, who together with his or her professor or the manager of his or her university will acquire new knowledge. And in this case, this knowledge is not given to him by his professors. They do not organize, and the managers of his university is not organize this process, but together with his professors, this student will acquire the new knowledge in a certain creative process. This is my answer to your question. Thank you, to everybody, and Mr. Ras, Madam Zhana. But if you are talking about today's student, and we agree that we have to give him a sufficient rod, let's to say, and to form his uniqueness for the market demands, and to answer the question which was raised by Mr. Rodion, what you can do, what do you know, what you can demonstrate. Why under the modern education system, why should not we create such a product which can be offered later to the market of labor? Well, we should have that the student himself or herself cannot do that, but the law on higher education creates the conditions when both the state, in the person of the profile ministries or whoever other stakeholders having something to do with the higher education, and other education establishments within the framework of their autonomy, first of all, the academic autonomy, can offer or ensure, provide such conditions for students. Absolutely support Taras that the principle of the higher education must be student centrism. The law can provide this, and the list of the specialization also offers that, because the curriculum which is offered to the student actually provides him an opportunity to find himself on the market of labor. But this approach must be flexible. The university, within the framework of broad range of specialization, has to find this road to the market of labor, which will help the student under the available conditions to find himself or herself and realize himself or herself as a personality. Speaking about what Mr. Bugrov said, that there are no standards in the European space of education. Standards, in our understanding, that this is dogmatic, something dogmatic. No, there is nothing like that. But if we are talking about recommendation to create the single educational space in the single Europe, it exists. And that's why they adopted in Ukraine the framework of the standards, and the list is orientated to Europe. Maybe not in the volume which we would like to have, but we started from the European orientations or landmarks, which offers even more opportunities for this student's own trajectory. But this is a very powerful tool in order to integrate into European space of higher education. In addition to this personal trajectory, to prepare himself or herself for the would-be profession or vocation, also owing to this list and other provisions of new law on education, and also it offers the academic mobility. In other words, an opportunity or chance to go to Europe and to undertake some courses in European universities to acquire new competencies, which unfortunately is not used in this country to a full measure, and new mobility can be open or accessible to students. Why we didn't have this 100% academic mobility before? I can talk about that because I represent here one of our mandates is the reforming of higher education within the context of the Bologna process. And among the projects financed by European Union and Ukraine, the majority of those projects are orientated to create the common or joint, let's say, educational curricula. And the joint programs or curriculum which provide for entering European space when the university will acquire some certain competitiveness, because the standard which is fixed by the regulatory acts did not allow to strike or to create the joint programs or curriculum, or the universities were limited in this, and accordingly the students were limited in their chances. Now we can have we can make use of the new law so that the new curriculum be orientated to the demands of the students and markets of labor. Students, first of all. Thank you, Jana. And now we are going to switch over to the second, let's say, field of our discussion, and maybe the last question on my part, address again to each and every one. We understand that the student orientation is positive. This must be a major goal which we have to achieve, but preparing for this roundtable of ours, I tried to look at the, let's say, the schedule of lectures at each of the departments to see how many subject matters or subjects are taught at each department. According to the new rules, the maximum number of those subjects will be 8, But having visited websites of 5 or 6 universities, I found a lot of information about the research activities, international cooperation, etc., but I did not find any schedule of training and lectures. Only at the medical university in Lviv I found something. By the way, I found 10 subjects, but this individual case, it can be regarded as the common case, for all the higher educational establishments. So my question is how this kind of the higher educational institute can help the student who is not yet a student, who still is a kind of a high school student, and he can find on the website what he's going to be taught for the 5 years of his education if he enters the higher education establishment. My question is addressed to everybody, irrespective of who you represent here or what you represent here. Very quick reaction to response to what you said. We continue this discussion, just to close the discussion about the list of those specializations. The list is a very important step. The first step, we should not exaggerate that, and that this fact of adopting this list will resolve all the existing problems. No, but this step is rather important and much badly needed. But logically, this must be followed by some other steps which you have to take. And the next steps, which I can visualize, the creation of the Scientific Methodological Council, Methodology Commission for Specialization or Specialty, and those commissions have to form new standards of Ukrainian education. That must be the novel documents based on what we already here mentioned. If any journalists would like to see this kind of text bordering on absurdity, this is something which we would like to have. A new standard, new standards will show what we actually would need or wanted to have. These are kind of statements, rather narrow, 5 to 6 pages documents, which will briefly describe what students have to know, or what knowledge he has to acquire after he is through this or another curriculum or program. And I can assure you that now we're going to form those commissions which are going to take care of the development of those standards. For the first time ever, we are going to have an absolute transparent procedure. We're not going to invite our friends or our acquaintances, but those people who have experience, who have the knowledge, and they include the international knowledge and understanding what processes take place in the other countries. Those people who can really provide some input, and I would like to believe that we are going to invite those people who know and base their input on the existing European standards. By the way, not all specializations are covered by the standards, but even those which are covered by standards, we have to invite absolutely new people, and we have to do everything possible while inviting those people, and this being done maximum transparent, and we have to invite those people who can offer something new. This will be a logical follow-up steps which will allow us to create new mechanisms for new efforts. As for the KPP, the abbreviation was not understandable and to anybody else beyond the post-Soviet environment. In January, we signed a new order of the Minister of Science and Education, which reads that next year the educational curriculum for the OPP, it's part of the certain list of the subjects which are mandatory to be studied, So if any university believes that those subjects duplicate each other, or maybe these subjects should be taught in some kind of different manner, they can do that. But the next year will be a kind of transitional year, because all next year we are going to start working on creating new standards. Only in 2 years maybe they will introduce the new standards, But we have to move towards that in that direction anyway. And now what regarding the publicity or the transparency in the law on higher education, when we were drawing up this law or draft law, actually given the autonomy to universities, there are universities which can abuse this autonomy. It's critically important to us that the autonomy of new university is not turned into autonomy of the individual rector or president, or become the anarchy or the chaos inside the university. So it's critically important to us to give autonomy to university as a collective. University as a collective, among other things, must be, let's say, report to somebody or to some institution. You have to replace this vertical subordination or reporting of universities, which was the example of the older system. We have to change it for horizontal reporting, when university must be more open to the community, must mostly work inside the economic environment. That's why in the law on the higher education there are some rules, regulations which require from the university to publish some of the materials or documents on the site of this respective university. That's why in February we issued the resolution, and some of the universities start to work on that immediately on that issue, but a certain order was sent, let's say circulation was sent to some of the universities, the direct norms of the law on the higher education, which require the financial statements, reporting, and a number of publication different materials. And now we take care of the analytical analysis, which university what published or made public. And those results are preliminary, but they are still, we expect. Some of the universities cannot understand why they should do that. Some of the universities do not do anything about that. And some others claim that the requirements are not really well organized or whatever, well explained. We need more transparency, more publicity, and this demand is there. We do not expect that this will be done overnight, but the change of the mood of the employees of universities, of course, this will take some time, but I believe that we already made some progress along those lines. This a self-ridiculous or half-ridiculous story. When I was signing that kind of order, it indicated that we had to send where specifically you're going to place this or another information, and to make reference to that. And my working box, let's say work box, so I had a direct access to the letters of the universities, and some of them were, some comic, because we could not do that in due time, but we already found the person whose fault it is, and we are going to punish this person. So I believe that our movement towards the publicity is already there. When I was working in the public sector, in the latest project which I closed in the analytical center, it had something to do. Last year we presented this, and then we are going to present this year rating with a more broad methodology, and I communicated with former colleagues, and they say that now we are witness that more information is published on the sites of universities, so something has changed even for the last year. There is some progress, but we need the change in the approaches, and will take a bit more than 1 year. Sorry.
In fact, what we need to achieve, universities must compete for students. That's the goal. It's a dream. They should compete for our students and also for international students. And we have this academic mobility and that obligation that at least 25% should be chosen, subjects will be chosen, that will cause competition between professors, programs, and professors should come to the administrations and say, put my lectures, put my program on the website, for others also to see, sign up, to come, to attend, because that will depend whether they have my course or not, whether I work or not. That's why when we see exhibitions of British education in Ukraine, and British universities come to Ukraine to compete for students, and Ukrainian education in Ukraine, competition for students is absent. So there are two There is one dimension that's openness, and the other dimension is correct, healthy competition on education market for students and for cooperation with employers, etc. Because it's not a secret that the ratings of universities, unofficial ratings, they exist, and there are difference for different professions, etc. They also competition is different, so we need to work for that, to take modern formats. There should be modern competition on the education market, and then it will not cause new quality of education, but we will be on the right track. Mr. Olivier, you wanted to say something.
I want to underline some fact, very pragmatic fact. In France or in USA, because I did a US MBA, in USA or in France, when the student want to choose his school, I talk about business school, he want to see only at the beginning 3 information. First information, my diploma is recognized or not by the state. Second information, my diploma has international accreditation, yes or no. Third information, the average income of the alumni. That means the student who did this business school, their average income. Yeah, and when they saw those 3 information, they took the decision only. And after that, they go to the program, to what I want to do. But 3 information most important. Why those 3 information are very important? First information, my diploma is recognized by the state. That's very important because I can continue, I can do other diploma in my state. That's good. International accreditation. Maybe one of the most important information. Why? Because for mobility. My business school, my MBA I did in USA has all the international accreditation. I can work all around the world, okay? That's good for me. I prefer to do this MBA. I took this MBA because the MBA in France in those times was not full accredited. The accreditation is a key issue for mobility. And the income, the average income. If I see that the average income of this school, of the alumni, is very high, what does mean? That means that this business school is very pragmatic, is close with the reality of the economy. If in this business school the former student have a big income, that means they know what is the business. Then you have to think like that. 3 information, very important. Now I want to underline one thing about autonomy of university. When I was in France or did some other courses abroad, in US or in Canada or in European Union, you have a very good way of thinking. That means the professor receive some grade from the students, not only from the administration. A professor can be nominated, but if the student gave to him very bad grades, he can be fired. And this is what's happened in business school in US and in Europe. Then you have to, if the autonomy of the university has, for me, to be controlled by the administration, that's good, but also by the student. The student has to give a grade to their professor and to their director. And that's very important.
Дякую, пане Тарасе.
Thank you. I would like to give a medical comparison. Why? As Alexander mentioned, why it was difficult for him to find information about universities on their websites. If I have information about who is the staff in that university, I mean administration, also professors, it's like X-ray of that university. If I have curriculums of that university, I have a tomogram of that university. If I have the schedule, I have electrocardiogram of that university. And with these 3 shots, I know everything about that university. And everything which is in description of the website has no sense for someone who has these 3 shots, because I will read the diagnosis of that university. And the diagnosis can be not only healthy, but it can be of a sick patient, a serious sickness. There could be, it could be very close to die. It's very important to understand why these documents are absent. It's important to mention one more thing. Why we teach for so long? Why we have students who are 26, 28, why do we have the week for 26, 28, 30 hours of learning, of teaching? We have one tradition that everything depends on how they teach, not how they learn. Secondly, we have the situation when we have a great number of cheap professors. That's why of teaching staff. That's why rational or not rational we include into that academic process. Under the condition of normal price for teaching, normal organization of everything, we should have not more than 18, sometimes 20 hours for bachelor's degree, maybe 16, 18, and not 14, 16 for master's degree. But we would have a lot of additional burden on a lot of self-learning that is done by the student. When I create such a model of learning, of education, and if we have such a level of motivation of every participant, that he will generate that additional burden. He will do that on his own, not under the pressure of those who organize the education. We will have a normal model of training of education. We had it in the 90s in the Institute of Foreign Relations. So that's the way we were learning, because international economy as a subject started modern subject. When we became independent, we had a problem. And professors and students was learning economics at the same time. International economic relations, that's the way to call it. We have microphone is off. Everything is translated now, and all comments. Everything is translated. I wanted to continue what Taras, Olivier, and Jana told as to student centrism. We say that students, we should be focused on the needs of students, and they should decide ratings. They should give grades to professors, and they should develop programs, as Mr. Finikov told. Let's look at this. Students, are our students ready to do that? Because honestly, when I was a teacher in the Institute of Foreign Relations or International Relations. I graduated from it, and so I knew quite well. But I have some fears. If tomorrow, for example, we tell our students, okay, decide on your curriculum, choose subjects, give grades to professors, we can get into it can be we can have one more extreme, and there could be a lot of voluntarism among students. I don't want to exaggerate, but the process of student centrism, it should be regulated and should be gradual. So we should educate a student who will be responsible to his education, responsible to his colleagues, students, and to curriculum and to his career, who will be motivated to select those programs he likes more from the point of view of development, professional or personal. It's not one who is a freshman cannot do that. And we should implant that in our schools and our families, outside of families, outside of schools. It's not a quick process. Very good opinion when you told that how students should decide which university to enter. Thank you very much for that opinion. We can speak a lot about higher education, but we forget. We don't speak about schools and education there, and it's a very difficult issue. Before I give the floor to Mr. Volodymyr and Viktor, I invite you as a representative of the Department of Universities. I remember I was a student in a journalism university, and we had a subject which is called economics of mass media. And that seemed to me very important. But under that, they taught economy of agriculture, because the professor could teach only that. But the name was very beautiful, and of course we all thought that it's a very important subject. But in the end, it came out that we wasted time. Everybody who was not going to write anything about agriculture's economy. That's why Viktor Volodymyr, don't you have a feeling that new conditions, when a student decides on everything, when 25% of subjects could be selected by him, could be chosen by a student, they suggest you to become like an enterprise and to sell successful your knowledge and to create successful names for those knowledge. Alexander, thank you. Absolutely correct. I will start with your question. At present, the number of subjects there are 10 of them. That's what allowed by the legislation of not more than 10 of subjects during a semester. Everybody uses that. That's the first point. Now, the ministry gave a decree and agreed that there shouldn't be more than 8 subjects. And there was no need to have a decree, but there are people who are waiting for that. Why there is no schedule? Yes, we have schedules by departments. Even there is a virtual reception of your institute. The university is a big business, big structure, but the content of our curriculums is not true, because all that we have information in the package. For example, in Chernivtsi University, we took them as an example how to systemize visually, and why not all universities show that. The reason is very simple, because the disorder of Ukrainians is disorder. And I saw one program on the website of our philosophy department of Shevchenko University. In some time, I saw from someone who came to be trained from a regional university a copy of that program, but under a different name. Unfortunately, this happens, and we are asking them to correct, because there is a copyright, and so that's why, like individuals programs, this is something we have to think about. Students centrism. Rodion is correct. We should teach students to choose. It's too late to do that on the stage of a university. That should be done in schools. And the second point, I ask myself, if a student in the university, if they know everything they want, they need to learn, they have nothing to do in the university, they should. There are a lot of online projects like Prometheus, etc. And through informal education, they can get a lot of knowledge, and and such people can get diplomas if with such construct of credits. That's quite a realistic way. I wouldn't like, though I wouldn't like to be treated by a doctor who was taught online. But MBA, Olivier mentioned, that's something special. That's something different. It's the best schools. There's a special genre, and that's different from all the rest. So, summing up, I would like to say the following. Students' centrism, and there should be also professor centrism, and also employee centrism. These also should exist. There must be a balance of interests of all components, and that balance of employer parents, because our parents very often finance education, that's why they are clients. And something we are missing is the state order and public universities. People study, they're paid by the state, and then they go to business and pay taxes and create jobs. That's quite normal. And we discussed it for 10 years. And finally, we have three advisor for the Minister of Information Policy. He's also a professor in the Institute for International Relations. And several days ago, Zhena Panchenko from the same faculty published quite a good column about communication. And she told that the phrase was, who has information has the world. And now the principle is, who has efficient communication, he owns the world or runs the world. Institute of Journalism is now renamed to Mass Communication Institute. So efficiency of communication in education is a key component for that is trust. All the rest we can discuss. An example, on the website of one regional university, there is a curriculum which is identical to Shevchenko University, philosophy department. It's fine because this is the standard. So they learn for 3 methodologies and they get best marks, and they come to our master schools and see their diploma with the best marks. I do but I trust those because I know all the professors who teach there. I know they don't have any professional who is working on logics. So someone who graduated from philosophy department, they have a diploma, but I don't have trust to those marks, because I know by the content. So it's the same with employers and everybody else. Today we sent 250 law companies. We send a request to send a feedback how they see education and what skills should be there.
It was nice when the former graduates themselves came to us and brought some proposals that they were prepared to take care of trainings or whatever else. And they said, yeah, we are prepared to do that, to take care of trainings. But what was mostly surprising to me, one of the most respected partners, this level.com, they wrote that today the legal students, they take too much information from Wikipedia and not enough make use of the codes and the comments to them. So again, the kind of paradoxical situation. Again, we are talking about the confidence and trust to that. When all of us, we have to ensure the balance of interest, and if we can get back this trust to the Ukrainian education. By the way, the comment, there is an ongoing exhibition here in this within this premises, education exhibition of Ukraine. I would say the exhibition how to more quickly send our students to some foreign country. In our colleague Volodymyr, he goes all over the world and recruits the students for Polish universities. And the Ukrainian students, the universities on the second floor, the higher floor, you not always you even reach, because they are kind of catch you in between the floors, you know. So and you can sometimes you do not reach the information about Ukrainian universities. So although there are backs about efficient communication, actually I asked my colleague to provide training for effective, efficient communication, you know. What I mean to say that only pulling our efforts we can do something. Viktor and then the next speaker. I would like to say the Ukrainian universities for a long time now have been competing and fighting for students, not only between the Ukrainian universities, this fight and this struggle is going on, but also the Polish universities, and many graduates, Ukrainian graduates go to Poland, some other European countries and universities. So competition is already there. Another question, whether the academic community realizes the presence of this kind of competition, because this competition is going to be even more active in the years to come. If we have some prospects for the visa-free regime, our students will have more chance and opportunities to go to other countries. And this is a very serious factor of competition. We cannot be equal in this competition even under the given circumstances. But what we have to do and what we are doing today, I would like to say that 25%, this is no news. Our students for many years have a chance to choose where to study. In our university, we have the presentation, our future lectures to be delivered, and this practice is in place for 4 years now. When there is no open competition between the lecturers or professors, they can offer to students different presentations for them to choose their own lectures or course or curricula. So I don't see any problem here. Regarding the schedule, you know, I'm really surprised. The schedule is present maybe on the website or university, but all of them have the web page in the real-time mode. And we actually already, it's a custom of our students to visit those sites or pages every night. You know, I did not visit the site of university, so you're most kindly invited. You're most welcome to do that. One more thing, actually, which is required by law, we understood a long time ago that in our university website, we have the information, all the information which is required by new law. But, you know, the funding in how we use the money, how we spend the money, you know, the composition of our lecturers and professors. You can visit the web page of each chair, of each department. You'll see the, let's say, you'll see the chair, I mean, the list of the chair, the lecturers who work on this or another department. But there are different stories when he works or when he sends the information on the website or on the web page. It is a different story. You are become open to your students, and it makes this student, this professor or lecturer to work more hard, you know. If we can follow on a monthly basis, we can introduce some changes on a monthly basis. We cannot work today in with a different approach. You know, we have NAZABA and such very interesting abbreviation or acronym. If they made the open procedure of, let's say, accreditation of the educational curriculum. So please, we have that open information. You can visit and see for yourself. we should not deal with some kind of paperwork. The more so that the whole database is in DBO, whatever it means by that, and how many students we are going to recruit, how many we are going to dismiss for maybe for different reasons. But in fact, the university with DBO became very transparent for those bodies, controlling bodies, we used to call them. So we don't have to hide anything from them. I would like to say that today we are going to put the pyramid from the top to the bottom, turn it. And in fact, what can do a professor or lecturer, but maybe this is not required by anybody, what he can do or she can do. In today's curriculum, we've already created a number of the educational curriculum projects, and without any standards, but those programs we are implementing, we would like to teach on a new basis. We have to proceed from those competences which have to have the graduate of our new universities. And if you're talking about the possibility to provide the choice for the students, they are ready already for that. They have a well-informed choice. And actually, we already have some ratings. What is more like, what students like more, what less, And something which is associated with emotional competences, associated with the relationship and communication between the people. And I believe the students can properly orientate in this flow, but because we have to provide the very well organized communication possibilities. And of course, they choose the top ratings. Maybe we just underestimate the students, modern students. Maybe they're even better informed than we think about that. Mr. Olivier, you have the floor.
I want to underline a few in this debate. First, about the students and the election of their courses. I not only teach in business school, I teach also in National School of Administration, who train some minister and some IT civil servant in France. I teach also in university in France and abroad. And I want to say that when a student has to elect a course, he cannot elect the main courses. That means if in MBA degree, for example, he cannot say, I don't want a course of economy. He only can elect some optional course. That represent around 20%. And for the sense of responsibility of the students, they have a sense of responsibility because they know if they cannot take the good courses, they will not have the good income. They always elect the courses to have the best income. They are very pragmatic. They don't want to elect a courses of, agricultural or jardinage or philosophy. No, they say this is nothing. That's nothing to my future to have a good income. They want course very pragmatic.
Agriculture is very important.
Yeah. But yes, I know. But I see for your example of agriculture.
Okay.
That's very important. Then that's the first. Second part. I know that the Ukrainian university are involved in international society. They are in international program. But I did a lot of conference for students in Ukraine, in the west of Ukraine, in the east of Ukraine, and all those students they say we want to do an international program, and some of them they didn't know that the university where they are not in Erasmus program. I was very afraid, but because a lot of students in Ukraine, they don't have the information in their own university. And a lot of them, they say, I want to go to France. I say, go see your professor, ask your professor if your university is in Erasmus program. And they don't know that. They didn't know. And they ask to the professor, and the professor say, yes, we are. And the students say, what? Why you didn't say that? Because nobody asked. Then you have to do a big information about what you did at international level. For your student at first. That's really a lack of information. Thank you.
Маємо, а можемо чисто процедурно, у нас буквально...
Procedural point of view, maybe there were some comments in the audience or questions from the audience, because we are actually running out of time. So please, if anybody has any questions or comments, everything is understood. We are moving in the correct direction. So very briefly, summing up our discussion today, just to wrap up. Regarding this discussion, we were talking about these students centricity, non-student centricity. First of all, I myself, I graduated from the Kyiv Mohyla University, and for me, the election or selection of the course is something they have offered for the second year of studies to select some of the subject. I also, I'm a lecturer in the Kyiv Mohyla University. Students have to show some initiative to be enrolled in some for this or another course. Only there is some threat that some portion of the students will elect or select some of the courses which are more easy or can easily pass the exam or something like that. But also students are very pragmatic. They really would like to have something which will help find them a job, which would be useful for their future. That's why I believe that we should not infantilize too much the students, and not believe that they're just kids which cannot make their choice. Those kids are already of 18 years of age. They have the right to fight in the front lines for their country, so why they should not be given a chance to select something for themselves? We should not keep them always under our control. Of course there are some threats. There must be some limitations or limits or frames, framework. And there should be some balance which we have to provide. Some universities will cope with this better, some worse, and students will cope, some students will cope better with this situation, some not so good well, but there is some kind of problem associated with the fact when we take 80% of the graduates from the high schools and give them possibility to become students. A priori, we have to understand that some of those students won't be able to study at the universities. This is a problem which can be resolved overnight, but no, we have to understand, to differentiate which students really have abilities and would like to study in the universities can do that, and who not. And I have a comment regarding what Volodymyr said, that their job employment service works and how they can take into consideration the demands for the students, etc., etc. This is very good, and this is correct, and university have to do something about that. But here I cannot but remind you that about 3 weeks ago, another resolution of Cabinet of Ministers was adopted about the job placement of all the graduates in universities. And this kind of mandatory job placement, each student our graduate has to bring some paper to demonstrate, to prove that he or she found a job. And actually, some of them were collecting just those papers. And this resolution is kind of step towards the implementation of the law on higher education. We actually have just to normalize the environment inside the universities, and the lecturers, the professors, instead of trying to improve their programs, they were just calling their former students to ask them to bring those papers to prove that they have jobs. We have to think about the improvement of the quality of education, first of all. Of course, this is a complicated process, but we do not have any other way out of the situation. Viktor mentioned that, for example, how many students go to Poland to studies there. Some of the data published only last year in the previous curriculum year. I mean, in Poland, we had only 9,000 last year, and this year already 15,000. That means that over a period of 1 year, so many students went to Poland to study there. So that means we cannot leave this situation as it is now. We have to change something for the better, of course. Gradually, but we have to move in that direction. Sorry, but I have to say goodbye. Thank you very much, Ina. Yes, we have to live together with Ina because we have to then to some, well, as we say, public affairs, you know. I also would like to thank participants in the round table and the organizer of this round table. I really liked it very much. We crystallized some kind of idea mentioned by my colleague. We have to invite the representatives of the Minister of Finance as the participants of this round table. Not so much Minister of Economy as a Minister of Finance. I emphasize that. We have to start this dialogue. It must be ongoing, permanent, continuous dialogue because we have a lot of different problems. Higher education is one problem. But education subvention, financing of our schools, high schools. And this problem was given to the Minister of the Education, responsibility for this subvention, but not they did not provide to have the personnel which could manage the subvention. We have, let's say, the staff, let's say, the number of the staff, and those who do not know the education subvention 43 plus the employers almost for 9 billion hryvnia. We have to manage the subvention. Always it was the part of the Ministry of Finance. Now they delegated this responsibility to the Ministry of Education for us to, and they said, manage that, you know. So this is a very important issue. It's not the only problem we have. So we would appreciate very much, and we would think, and we would appreciate if the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, UCMC, well, I can say that we are moving towards the final minutes of our round table. You can you communicate beyond the premises of this audience. We try to do something and invite on a monthly basis representatives of Ministry of Education and someone else. So we would appreciate if you come here to communicate. If you need our support, we are going to do that because this is our mission. Speaking about the abbreviation, which can be understood in different sectors, in the journalist, OKMC is the UCMC, the place where we can discuss very pressing issues of our development of our country, education sphere included. May I thank everybody for the participation in this round table and wish you a very nice time during the upcoming holidays. If anybody can ask questions, we can do that beyond the scene. So to say, thank